Mark Twain was the pen name of Samuel Langhorne Clemens, the American author and humorist who wrote such classics as Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. Clemens and his family lived here for 17 happy years, and he wrote most of his best-known works during this period. After parting from the house forever, Sam yearned for it. The house had a heart and a soul, and eyes to see us with, he wrote. It was, he said, the loveliest home that ever was. The Mark Twain House opened for public tours in 1974 on the 100th anniversary of the family moving in.
The house was designed in a Victorian Gothic style by architect Edward Tuckerman Porter in 1874 for Samuel and Libby Clemens. 7 years after the house was completed in 1881, it was renovated. This is where historic figures came together. Mark Twain engaged the services of Associated Artists, the decorating firm led by Louis Comfort Tiffany, and included Candace Wheeler, Samuel Coleman, and Lockwood DeForest. It is to this period, 1881, that past and present restorations have been focused on. After the first restoration of the house in the 1960s, it was declared a National Historic Landmark. In this recent restoration of the house, the guest suite in particular, which included the bedroom, dressing room, and bathroom, the John Canning Company was pleased to be a part of a restoration team led and managed by Downs Design Built Construction Company and the project architect David Scott Parker, who was responsible for the in-depth historic architectural research, the redesign of the room, and the selection of materials.
The Canning craftsmen worked alongside the Downs carpenters to carefully disassemble the mahogany woodwork for stripping and refinishing, including large base moldings, doors, window and door casings, fireplace surrounds, and cabinetry in the dressing room and bath.
I was architect and preservation consultant on various projects. We were fortunate to work with knowledgeable and insightful curators at both the Twain House, where Tracy Brendel was curator, and later with Mallory Howard. Downs Construction were the contractors for the Twain project and were a pleasure to work with, highly organized and efficient. John and his team, including David Riccio, were phenomenal, knowledgeable, insightful, always supportive, always helpful, always upbeat. Canning was definitely the right company to do the decorative work and conservation on these projects. They managed the schedule, maintained superlative quality, and exceeded expectations. Best quality, on time, and within budget.
My name is John Canning. I'm the founder and a principal of the John Canning Company. We specialize in historic preservation, that is the restoration and conservation of historic interiors and their materials.
The level of expertise and artisanship that John Canning and his team brought to the project was impressive and indispensable. Not only were they extremely accessible over the course of the work, they were happy to share their vast knowledge with our staff, answering questions and explaining the materials and the process they employed. The Mahogany Suite is absolutely stunning, in part due to the wonderful work of John Canning and Company and the rest of the restoration team.
Our role on the team was to implement the work in the traditional methods and practices of the Victorian period. This included plaster consolidation and repairs, refinishing of all woodwork, polychrome, gilding, and the installation of Candace Wheeler's award-winning wallpaper design, Honeybee, reproduced on canvas by Bradbury and Bradbury for the ceiling and walls of the bedroom. This suite became known as the Mahogany Suite because of its rich Honduras mahogany furnishings and woodwork. Over the years, the wood had been damaged by water and inappropriate varnish coatings. Once these coatings were stripped, the wood was repaired and the watermarks were remedied. It was then buffed with quadruple steel wool, which polished the raised grain and pushed the residue into the pores, acting as a wood filler. This also allowed the wood to retain its natural patina. It was then toned with aniline dye to match the mahogany furniture. Then it received multiple coats of traditional spirit varnish, buffed between coats, and as a final touch, the top coat lightly buffed to match the French polish-like finish of the furniture. This was a very labor-intensive operation. The original plaster ceiling, walls and cornice was cracked and damaged by water intrusions. We removed the old wallpaper and buildup of years of residue until it was as smooth as glass. Then consolidation and plaster repairs were carried out and spot primed. The ceiling and walls received a lining paper hung in the opposite direction of the Canvas Wheeler wallpaper that was printed on canvas. A lining paper was used underneath because wallpaper and canvas contract into the center when they dry, so the lining and canvas, which are hung in opposite directions, counterbalance each other and prevent shrinkage. There are 6 different wallpaper patterns, 2 on the ceiling and 4 on the walls. All the seams were butt jointed and in some cases had to be double cut through the 2 layers of canvas without cutting through the lining paper or the plaster. In the Victorian era, a thin strip of zinc was placed underneath the 2 canvases to be double cut. The zinc strip protected the underlying lining paper and plaster from being cut with the knife. If the lining paper was cut, it would negate the lining paper's ability to prevent shrinkage at that joint. Today we use self-healing plastic instead of zinc.
For Downs Construction, I would conclude by thanking John, Dave, and the artisan team from John Canning Studios for their invaluable contribution to restoring a part of one of our nation's greatest homes. The creative beauty of Tiffany and Wheeler, provided to Mr. Sam Clemens, was lovingly restored and recreated by John Canning Studios in our home state of Connecticut.
One of my favorite descriptions of the guest suite was by Southern writer Grace King, who paid a visit to the Clemenses and was lucky enough to stay in there. She wrote to her mother from the mahogany bedroom, "The maid has hung up my dresses and placed all my things for the night on the dressing tables. There are lights lighted everywhere, and I do feel very much like Beauty did when the Beast left her alone in the palace." The work from John Canning and Company helped bring that ambiance back to life. Preservation for our historic houses and cultural institutions is vital. Protecting, preserving, and continuing restoration work for sites like the Mark Twain House Museum is a responsibility that we take seriously. We are honored to count John Canning and Company among our partners who share that vision, passion, and duty.
The project received a 2020 Preservation Connecticut Award of Merit for the Mahogany Suite at the Mark Twain House. The John Canning Company also received 2 prestigious awards.